And with industry insight and reaction, we are now joined by Chief Information Officer for Headcount Corporation. And to provide the business and economic perspective, Alan Bly is president of Vitel Consulting. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
That's correct.
Great. Nice to have you here, gentlemen. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Let's first start with a response just to what we heard from Bernard. Start with you, Jim.
Okay, I guess for me it was the regional, talking about the regional difference in the corporate culture. In my dealings, there's been a big disconnect between the regional salespeople, front sales, and also the consumer understanding. When they see commercials, they see nationwide commercials. They expect that same service that they're getting. When any decision has to be made, for most of the regional, it has to go to corporate, which is usually in Toronto. I've gone through several times where there was nobody within Western Canada that could make a decision on basic plans. It all had to go to corporate. So that disconnect between corporate's understanding and what the customer is. Also, when you have mobility dealers that are independents, that are out there just to pump through as much product as possible, there's very much a disconnect between them wanting to sell you everything and the corporate understanding of what that service is.
So you'd like to see, what, more stringent measures to make sure there's consistency and that consumers have more sort of, awareness, control?
Definitely. I think it's got to come down to the local dealers because that's who the consumers are dealing with. Any decisions on the prices or packaging, the data, the system access fees, that's all done at corporate, and that's not who the customers are dealing with. They're dealing with somebody who wants to sell you a phone, get you on 3 years, get you out the door, and get the next one going.
Okay. Alan, what stood out for you in the conversation with Bernard Lord?
Well, I think what's important to understand is that when he said apples to apples, that the building of a network in Canada and the cost of that network is different, and the revenues generated from that network can be different than other countries. If you take a country like Japan, where you have significantly higher population density.
Yeah, and you know what, while you're talking, if we can bring up the board, gentlemen, we'll actually show the folks at home the disparity and what looks to be very much a link between population density and what we pay. We've got it up there now, so sorry, Alan, continue your thought.
Okay. As you can see by the board is that, and this was taken off the American Foundation data, the study that was done recently, is that there's a direct correlation to the population density of a country to the complete package price. That's because the providers have to put a certain amount of capital into the network, excuse me, as well as ongoing operating costs. And then from that, they generate the expected revenues.
So the disparity that we see here in terms of cost and population density, I guess the question many folks will be asking at home is it fairly accomplished? Are we, I mean, yes, there is a population density disparity, but there seems to be a dramatic disparity not only in what we pay, but also how we pay it. You know, some places in the world you don't pay for incoming phone calls at all. You look at the impact that would be on a Canadian cell phone bill, it would be dramatic. So those types of things. Alan, would you say that it's a fair disparity?
Well, there's always the differences between each of the markets. So also comparing the market in Tokyo compared to the market in Canada. What currently do the residents in Tokyo have for access into the internet? What do Canadians have access to into the internet? What applications do they use? What applications do we use? It's very significantly different. And as a result, what the carriers will do is they will adjust their rate plans according to that market. Right. Once again, they're public companies, and so what they have to do is they have to show a certain margin of profit to their shareholders.
Okay, Jim, Bernard touched on it. We've got a Cadillac here in Canada, 99% coverage and great coverage at that. Should we be looking at making sure that Canadians have access to the LATA as well? I mean, should Canadians be able to make that choice of not paying for the Cadillac if they don't want it?
Yeah, I definitely think, and I think the thing in those stats you'll notice is the word package. I think a big problem up here in Canada is we're seen as not an all-around user. We're seen as texting, we're seen as data, we're seen as phone. And they say, yeah, the phone rate, and Bernard said, yeah, our phone minutes are some of the lowest. He didn't talk about data, he didn't talk about the other things. I mean, I know they can waive 911 fees, I know they can waive the system activation fees, they can waive all those kind of fees if they want to, but they just pile everything together. Yes, we got low data minutes, but the package is what the problem is. It's a la carte, and for you to get what you want, I mean, people think they only need a student package or a social networking package, but you need that whole thing, and that's how they bundle it together, and that's why the costs go up.
Okay. Alan, fees on spectrum, government fees, Bernard touched on those. Should maybe some of the discontent, shall we say, that Albertans, maybe Canadians might have about their costs, should some of that be directed towards government? I mean, what sort of role do they play in what we pay?
Certainly there's ways that we can reduce the capital and ongoing operating costs of a network. And some of those can be done by the providers themselves, and then some through regulation, such as Industry Canada. So in terms of providers themselves, they each build separate infrastructures across this large country, which significantly add to that initial capital investment into the network. What I would really like to see is the carriers playing in the same sandbox to work together on being cooperative, at the same time be competitive into the marketplace. Okay. And then reducing operating costs such as spectrum would be a big part of that.
Okay, Jim, is it like having every rail company having their own set of tracks, and we've got 4 or 5, 10 sets of tracks going from Calgary to Vancouver?
Yeah, I mean, he talks about the density and the population density, but I can tell you that coverage hasn't improved very much over the last 5 years. I mean, if they're throwing money into infrastructure and higher speed networks, I don't know what's going on. It's sort of the equivalent of the gas companies. You still pay the same for gas. You've got all these providers. You can have more providers coming in. You can have gas coming from all over the place. We refine it here, and yet we're all paying the same price, no matter what that gas station is. And I think that's a big problem here in Canada with the telecoms is they probably could be competitive, and I swear if somebody dropped their price, it'd be like a gas war. I mean, everybody would go there and would start signing up for contracts for who knows how long. So,
do you see room for that as well, Alan, in terms of the business model? Obviously, these companies, of course, do want to make money. How much money that is maybe not for the average consumer to decide, but is there room there for competition to bring prices down?
Certainly, market forces always do 2 things in this industry. 1, improve services. 2, lower costs. And so what we have to do is we want to introduce competition, but we can introduce competition with an understanding that we want to first of all reduce the cost of the initial capital costs and operating costs of the network. And then certainly let's put different brands in there to address different markets, like since names like Kudo and so forth have had a significant impact, right, addressing that certain market.
Is that the key then to getting prices down as far as you're concerned, is introducing more competition? I mean, if we are looking at ways to do that, how can we do it?
Well, first of all, you have to reduce the cost of the infrastructure, and you do that through cooperation of the carriers. And at the same time, through that, then what you do is you introduce competition, okay, a more competitive environment.
So you'd like to see that cooperation perhaps enforced?
That's right.
Okay. Jim, from your point of view, what can we do to get prices down?
Just drop them.
Just drop?
They can if they want.
You think there's profit margin there to do that?
Yeah, I've dealt with them on a very large scale with a large organization and a small organization. And if they want a deal, they'll drop the price. It has to go up through channels and has to get approved. I mean, I've had a $30,000 bill for one device on overage charge credited back to me. Okay. So the possibility is there for what they're charging. They just are choosing not to.
Okay. Do you think we'll see that? What's the likelihood of you don't see that? Alan, do you see, in terms of cooperation, what you're suggesting we do, increase competition? Do you think we'll see that?
No, not really. We'll see a limited aspect of it where the carriers will create their own brands, which is what they've been doing. Okay. But one thing that we need to have happen is we need to have the foreign ownership rules really looked at, okay, to increase competition in this country.
So not a lot of optimism here on the panel today that we'll see prices go down anytime soon, but I think you've certainly turned the light on for many of us. Certainly appreciate you coming in and talking about it. Great discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, it's Jim Kidd, who is Chief Information Officer for Headcount Corporation, and Alan Bly, President of Vitel Consulting.